One night, you open your phone, the same reels, the same temptations, but for the first time, nothing pulls you. No desire, no guilt, just silence. And that's when it hits you, what if Allah took away my sex drive? Not as a punishment, but as something far more terrifying or merciful. You're not numb because you're pure. You're not broken because you slipped. You're here because your soul is whispering. Ya Allah, what's happening to me? You used to feel something. Temptation, guilt, tension, relief. Even if it was haram, it still made your heart race. But now, it's just quiet. You open your phone, scroll through the same accounts, the same reels, the same late-night rabbit holes. But nothing triggers you, not even the things you promised yourself you'd never look at again. And that's silence. It doesn't feel like growth. It feels like a gap, a hole where desire used to live. You whisper du'a after wudu, Ya Allah, please bring me back. But the sky stays still. No urge, no spark, just silence pressing down on your chest like a question you're too scared to ask out loud. Am I broken? Is Allah punishing me? Or worse, has He just left me alone? At first, you think it's a blessing. You're finally free from temptation. Maybe this is what spiritual maturity feels like, right? But then the weeks stretch on. The numbness lingers. The quiet turns into confusion. And you start wondering, what if this isn't freedom? What if this is something else entirely? Here's the truth no one talks about. You are not alone. This video isn't just about lost desire. It's about a kind of inner silence. That feels terrifying, disorienting, but might actually be mercy. A mercy that doesn't come wrapped in comfort, but in stillness, in blank spaces, in rewiring. And if you're watching this because you're scared, confused, or secretly hoping someone will explain what you're going through, stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand the 6 reasons why that silence you fear might be protection, not punishment. This isn't a motivational lecture. No hype, no fake comfort, just raw honesty about the spiritual burnouts, the hidden battles, and the numbness no one posts about. Let's begin with the first reason, the one your body tried to tell you, long before your heart finally admitted it. You burned out, fighting a battle you never even named. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. The burnout started quietly. The night you swore you'd never fall into it again. You cleared the tabs, deleted the history, sat in the dark, tears falling after wudu, whispering, Ya Allah, last time, please. But by the end of the week, you were back. Same page, same shame, same cycle. And with every cycle came more pain, more self-hate, more exhaustion that no one else could see. You pushed harder, woke up for far with your eyes barely open, avoided your phone like it was a trap, looked away during conversations that used to pull you in. You tried to starve the desire by giving it nothing. But that's not how healing works. You weren't starving it. You were suffocating yourself. Time passed, and suddenly you felt something new, or rather, nothing at all. No urges, no temptation, no emotional spike, just silence. And that emptiness, it scared you more than your last relapse ever did. You sat with that stillness and wondered, did I break something in me? Have I ruined my fighter beyond repair? But here's the truth no one says out loud, especially in Muslim spaces. When you fight the same private battle, day after day, year after year, without ever addressing the root, you don't purify your soul. You burn it out. You didn't lose your desire because you were impure. You lost it because your heart couldn't keep surviving the war alone. The endless secrecy, the shame, the weight of carrying a sin in silence, with no one to confess it to but Allah. And so, out of pure mercy, Allah removes the battlefield. He didn't abandon you. He didn't reject your du'ās. He didn't take your urge as punishment. He took it because you needed to breathe. The Prophet said, "This religion is easy, and whoever overburdens himself will not be able to continue." And you, my brother, you were overburdened, not because you were weak, but because you were fighting alone, thinking that pain equals sincerity. But Allah never asked you to bleed in secret just to prove you're trying. He never required isolation as proof of repentance. He knows how long you've been at war with yourself. So he answered your du'a in a way you didn't recognize, by pausing the urge, by letting silence do what shame never could, by holding back the fire, so it wouldn't consume the rest of you. What you're feeling now isn't failure. It's your fitra getting a moment to recover. The numbness is mercy. The silence is space. And the stillness is your soul's first breath after years underwater. But what if the war you were fighting wasn't just internal? What if your heart wasn't just tired, but overstimulated? What if it wasn't sin that broke you, but screens? Let's talk about that. No one ever says this clearly, but your brain doesn't have infinite space. Every time you scroll, every time you click, every time you pause on something you know is wrong, you're not just sinning. You're rewiring your brain. You're feeding it dopamine fast and shallow. And eventually, it burns out, even if you never touched anyone. Even if you technically stayed halal. The algorithm still shaped you. The micro-exposures, the harmless glances, the attention you gave without ever realizing what it was costing. And the truth no one tells you? Your sex drive didn't die. It drowned. You overloaded your system until it stopped responding. You scroll past something inappropriate. But instead of guilt or shame, you feel nothing. You get a rishta proposal. But instead of excitement, you feel exhausted. You wonder, am I broken? Will I ever feel anything again? What happens when I get married? Will I be emotionally dead by then? And then the panic hits. Did I ruin myself before I even got a chance? But here's where your nafs lies to you. Because you're not ruined. You're overstimulated. And your soul is buried under layers of noise. Algorithms. Artificial intimacy. Mental clutter. Even modern science says it now. Overstimulation leads to desensitization. But Islam told us long before. Indeed, and that is a reminder for whoever has a heart or who listens while he is present in mind. Surah Kaf 50:37. If you can't feel anymore, it's probably because your heart hasn't been present for a long time. This crash you're in right now, it's not random. It's not dysfunction. It's your fitra slamming the emergency brakes, forcing a system shut down before your soul starts mistaking addiction for love. Because that's what overstimulation does. It makes you numb to reality, numb to goodness, numb to what's pure, and eventually numb to Allah. So no, you didn't lose your desire. You just buried it beneath noise. You've been chasing dopamine, not healing. And now your ruh is whispering, enough. This stillness you're in, it's not a punishment. It's a rescue. But what if this silence wasn't just caused by your actions? What if Allah himself pulled the plug, not to punish you, but to protect you from burning the rest of yourself down? You didn't expect this. You thought you'd feel guilty, tempted, anxious, maybe even relieved. But this flat line, it's what scared you the most. Because at least when you slipped, you felt something, the tension, the shame, the regret. It meant your heart was still responding. But now, even that's gone. You thought, maybe I finally fixed myself. Maybe this is what healing feels like. But deep down, a new question crept in. Why don't I feel drawn to that person anymore? Why does the haram account I use to check religiously feel like static now? Why do my DMs feel cold? Not just in replies, but in emotion? And then the terrifying realization hits. You missed the rush. Not the sin. Not the consequences. Just the illusion of feeling alive. Even for a moment. Now, it's just quiet. And you start to wonder, did I go too far suppressing everything? Did I break something inside? Is this Allah turning away from me? But what if that's not what's happening? What if Allah didn't turn his back on you? What if he turned off the noise before it destroyed you? Here's what no one admits. Not every temptation fades because you beat it. Some fade because Allah unplugged it. Why? Because you were too deep, too emotionally hijacked, too close to the edge to walk away by yourself. So out of sheer mercy, he pulled the plug. He didn't wait for you to hit rock bottom. He didn't let you drown in addiction and call it just a phase. He numbed you before you burned your soul into something unrecognizable. That's not rejection. That's divine intervention. The prophet said, "If you feel no shame, do as you wish." That isn't just a warning. It's a diagnosis. When shame shuts off, desire runs wild, and your soul starts bleeding from places no one can see. So instead of waiting for you to tear yourself apart, Allah stepped in. He didn't mute you because he hates you. He muted the urge so you could finally start healing, without ripping your ruh apart in the process. This numbness you're scared of, it's not failure. It's first aid. And the fact that you're watching this, still searching, still making du'a, still wondering what this silence means, that's proof you're not disconnected. You're being protected. The fire didn't die. It's just been quarantined by the one who created it. But what if this silence is hiding something deeper? Something not spiritual, but physical? What if your guilt has been covering up a medical issue? You never thought to check? You thought it was a sin problem. You blamed the late-night scrolls, the accidental clicks you didn't stop fast enough, the comment sections you hovered over too long. You blamed your past, your weakness, your habits. So when your desire vanished, you assumed it was Allah punishing you. And when it stayed gone, you panicked. You searched symptoms, cried in secret, made desperate du'as between sujud, whispering, "Ya Allah, forgive me, just bring me back." But what if the problem isn't your soul? What if it's your body? What if your numbness isn't spiritual failure, but a physical imbalance? What if the fire didn't go out because of sin, but because your hormones collapse? Nobody talks about this. Not in your masjid, not in your circles, and definitely not in your group chats. But sometimes the reason your desire disappeared isn't lust or laziness or distance from deen. It's your thyroid. It's your medication. It's undiagnosed PCOS. It's your prolactin levels. It's your iron deficiency. It's trauma stored in the nervous system. It's years of guilt sitting like poison in your chest. Unspoken, untreated, misunderstood. And for men, it's performance anxiety. It's hormone crashes. It's dopamine depletion from years of digital self-abuse. And the pressure to be fine, because masculinity doesn't allow breakdowns. But because shame is louder than science. You never said anything. You just assumed you were broken. That Allah had sealed your heart. That this numbness was a sign of your spiritual death. But maybe your du'a needs a diagnosis. Maybe the help you're crying for in tahajjud starts with a blood test. This doesn't make you faithless. It makes you human. The Prophet said, "There is no disease that Allah has created, except that He also has created its treatment. And that includes the ones you're too embarrassed to ask about, the ones affecting your marriage, your self-worth, your relationship with Allah, the ones that sit quietly behind your smile during Jama khutbahs. You're not disgusting. You're not cursed. And you're not spiritually unfixable. You're carrying something your body has been trying to tell you for months, but your shame convinced you to ignore it. Healing doesn't start with self-hate. It starts when you realize you are worth healing, worthy of medical attention, worthy of compassion, worthy of spiritual softness without fear. So if you've been in a cycle of guilt, begging Allah to fix something, you've never even let a doctor check, maybe it's time to try both. Because even the Prophet told the sick to seek treatment, not because they were spiritually failing, but because they were worth saving. But what if this silence, this numbness, isn't a problem to fix, but a test to endure? Not punishment. Some tests scream. Others whisper. This one, it lives in your chest. Heavy, quiet, invisible. It doesn't come with public loss or loud grief. No death, no heartbreak. Just absence. The absence of desire. The silence where fire used to be. And that's what makes it harder. Because when people can see your pain, they comfort you. But when it's internal, when it's hidden beneath your daily routine, you begin to question your own faith. You see others with passion, others feeling everything you no longer do, and you wonder, why is Allah giving everyone else what I'm quietly begging for? You scroll past wedding announcements, engagements, smiles that seem so full of love and spiritual clarity, and you're just there, stuck in neutral, still obedient, but emotionally disconnected. But here's the truth you've been overlooking. When you long for something silently, but your obedience doesn't break, that isn't rejection. That's elevation. Think of Prophet Yusuf. Young, handsome, desired, tempted behind locked doors, alone. And yet, he said, "Oh Allah, prison is more beloved to me than what they call me to." That wasn't just willpower. That was surrender. He chose absence over sin, stillness over dopamine, pain over betrayal. And in doing so, he didn't just avoid fitna. He was raised by Allah through that very silence. So if you feel hollow, but you're still obeying, still staying clean, still dragging your tired heart to prayer, still whispering du'as even when they feel unanswered, then maybe this silence isn't about what you've lost. Maybe it's about what Allah is building. Because sabr isn't just patience. It's painful loyalty. It's not just waiting. It's worshiping while waiting. Staying loyal to Allah when your emotions have left the room. So don't let the quiet convince you you're failing. Don't mistake numbness for distance. Some of the highest ranks with Allah are written in moments where you felt absolutely nothing and still chose Him anyway. That's not weakness. That's faith that doesn't need feelings to survive. And sometimes the test isn't about whether you'll get what you want. It's about whether you'll stay sincere when you don't. But what if the silence wasn't a test at all? You asked for strength. You begged for clarity. You cried for a clean love story, one without sin, one that finally felt halal and whole. You whispered in sujud, "Ya Allah, pull me away from what's wrong and guide me to something real." And then it happened. Your desire vanished. Not just lust, but the craving, the pull, the chase. Gone. At first, you blamed shame. Then you blamed stress. But deep down, something else started to whisper. What if this is the answer to the very du'a I made? No one tells you this part. That sometimes Allah answers by removing before He gives. By taking away what clutters the path. Even if that means stripping you of feelings you thought you needed. That person you were addicted to, gone. That cycle you couldn't escape, interrupted. That rush that used to feel like love, muted. Why? Because to give you what you asked for, Allah had to empty you first. Sometimes the door you've been begging Him to open can't unlock until the wrong ones are slammed shut with force and mercy. Because if He didn't strip it away, you would have crawled back when it got lonely, when the silence hit, when healing got hard. You wanted marriage, but assumed you'd feel whole first. You wanted purpose, but never expected the path to it to feel this barren. You asked for healing, but thought it would come with warmth, not spiritual amputation. But that's the part of du'a no one prepares you for. Du'a isn't just about receiving. It's about being transformed into the kind of person who can carry what you ask for. And sometimes transformation feels like being emptied to the bone. The silence where desire used to live, that's not dysfunction. That's divine rewiring. Because when your body goes quiet, your patterns get loud. You start noticing how many of your habits were based on chasing emotion, not truth. How many of your late night slips were just loneliness dressed in dopamine. You realize desire was never the enemy, but unchecked desire, that's how people drown, while calling it swimming. So if you feel numb right now, if your fire is gone, if you don't even recognize your own emotional blueprint anymore, don't panic. Don't diagnose yourself off an Instagram reel. And don't let society convince you that silence equals failure. Sometimes silence is Allah saying, "I'm rebuilding you." Quietly, carefully, completely. And if He brings a desire back, and He might, it won't be wild and untamed. It will be healed, whole, and safe. What if it was the answer to your du'a? So now you've seen it. The emotional shifts, the inner rewiring, the spiritual flatline that wasn't abandonment, but preparation. You thought you were losing something, but maybe all along you were being rebuilt. Because sometimes when Allah takes something away, it's not just from your body, it's from your habits, your attention, your autopilot, And when he brings it back, if he does, it won't be like before. It will come wrapped in stillness, not chaos, purpose, not pattern. If your fire feels gone right now, if things feel flat, numb, or strangely calm, don't panic. Don't rush to fix it. Don't assume you're broken. Sometimes silence is sacred. Sometimes Allah isn't testing you. He's transforming you, not so you lose desire, but so you can finally deserve what desire was always meant to feel like: pure, protected, aligned. So if you've been scared of this quiet, if you've been wondering how long it'll last, what it means, then do one small thing. Leave a du'a, not just for your desire to return, but for your heart to be ready when it does. Something simple, something sincere, like, Ya Allah, make me pure in private like I try to look in public. Because maybe someone else will scroll down on the exact night they were about to give up, and your du'a is what keeps them going. If this video reached you in a moment of confusion, know that maybe it wasn't just a video. Maybe it was part of your rewiring. So whether you hit like or not, whether you share it or keep it to yourself, just don't forget the message. Because sometimes the quietest moments are the loudest wake-up calls from Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.